Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar. Today we are talking about how to lose weight forever. So I am Elizabeth Sherman. I am your host today, and we're just going to go ahead and get started and see who comes in and joins us. So let's see, let me share my screen. Give me just a second to get started. And hopefully you can see my screen. All right. So welcome to How to Lose Weight Forever. 3 ways to master your weight. And again, I am your hostess, Elizabeth Sherman. So today, what we're going to be doing is I am going to show you, or I'm not going to show you anything, but I'm going to give you some information on how you can get the body that you desire without having to give everything up that brings you joy. We do that, right? So right now, it's just a couple days before the new year. And what happens is we're like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to lose weight this year. I feel like crap and I just need to change everything. I need a complete overhaul. And so what we do is we decide that we need to cut everything out that we enjoy, like cake, like cookies, like alcohol, like pasta, and all of those things that we have grown to love. And over the course of the winter, probably eat maybe a little bit too much of and indulge a little bit too much. But what I want to share with you today is that you don't have to do that. You do not have to give everything that you desire up in order to reach your goal. And in fact, through the course of this webinar, and then at the end of today's webinar, I'm also going to share a couple other resources with you. And if you go through those resources as well, what you'll find is that if we actually practice having the things that we really love in moderation today, then when we get to our goal, we're not going to completely overindulge and then gain all of the weight back, because that's, I think, what we really want. Yes, we want to get to our goal fast, but I think what's way more important for anyone who's watching this right now is that we really want to have lasting health. We want to create lasting behavior changes, those things that really make a difference, so that we can finally be done with this dieting BS, right? Like, we don't want to have to do this every single year. So anyway, you are in the right place. If you are actively trying to lose weight and are either plateaued or you just want to lose weight, okay? So maybe since it's just after after Christmas, you haven't plateaued, you haven't been really trying yet. But if this is something that happens to you, this is something that you really want to take a look at. And so then also, if you are at maintenance, but you're in that white knuckling stage, right? Where you're like afraid to eat anything for fear that you will eventually gain weight, okay? It's not a fun place to be. We really want to feel at ease around food and at parties and things like that, and not worry about, if I eat this, am I just going to rebound, right? This is the right place for you if you can't get consistent with your habits, okay? Or if you feel like something is getting in your way, keeping you from being consistent, right? Or maybe you're consistent, but you're just not progressing and you're not sure why, okay? Regardless, this training is for anyone who desires to make a change, all right? So here's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn why diets and exercise programs aren't the answers to your struggles, how to make losing or maintaining your weight effortless, so that you don't need to plan, log, or feel nervous about walking into a party ever again. Like, we want to feel at ease around food. We want to feel at ease when we're in social situations. And what makes us not feel at ease in those social situations is all of the stuff that's going in our heads. Like, can I eat this? Can I not eat this? Are people judging me? Like all of that stuff that's going on in our heads is what's keeping us from just being able to relax into parties, right? And so what also you'll learn is how to be successful even when life gets in the way, because that's what happens to so many of us all the time, right? Is that we're going along, we're doing our thing, and then something happens, the rug gets pulled out from under us, and we just can't get back on track. And I'm going to share with you today that one of the things that I learned in being able to help my clients stop that from happening. So this is going to be really good for you. Okay, now this training is not for you if you are just looking for a diet. Okay, I don't do diets. I don't recommend that you do diets because people who do diets, 97% of people who do diets will end up regaining that weight within 3 to 5 years. That's people who are successful on their diets. 3% of people who are successful in their diets will actually maintain it. And so we don't do diets here. I don't do diets. What I do is I help my clients to have a better relationship with food, have a better relationship with exercise, and do all of the things that we know that we're supposed to do. I mean, everything as far as health and nutrition advice goes, none of it is rocket science. None of it is new. The question is, why don't we do it? And so if you're looking for that next quick fix, this isn't the right place. If you're someone who has an I already know that mindset, meaning that today when I talk about stuff, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I already know that. Okay, that's great if you already know it. The question is, are you applying it? Are you actually doing it? Because yeah, we all know what to do. There aren't any secrets. The question is, are we actually following through on that? And if not, why not? Okay. So also, this is not for you if you're stuck in your story about why you can't be successful. I see this all the time with my clients that they're like, yeah, I can't lose weight because I'm over 50. Or I'm just meant to be big boned. I'm just meant to have this struggle of being in this larger body. Or I am from a very large stock family, and so therefore it's impossible for me. Okay. Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. But what if we dropped that story? What if we dropped that narrative and actually looked at, well, what can we do to promote better health? Okay. And then the last one is being unwilling to take 100% responsibility for your reality. And I love that one because so often, and you know, I'm not immune to this, that I will be like, oh, but it's that other person's fault. You know what? Everything that we experience in life is within our own control. Okay. So that's what you're going to, that's who this is not for. Now, I want you to stick around to the end because I actually have a number of free resources for you at the end of at the end of this webinar. And so therefore I'm going to invite you to join me there. Okay. But I do have a request for you, and that is please pay attention, eliminate distractions, ask questions if you have any. I would love to hear them if you have any questions. I have the chat open right now. And also keep an open mind. So if you have questions, I won't be answering them within the presentation, but I will answer them at the end. So go ahead and feel free to enter questions into the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. So what makes this presentation different? So first of all, actually, let me introduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Sherman. I am a life and weight loss coach, which means, because a lot of people ask me that, what does that mean? You're a life and weight loss coach. I am a certified personal trainer. I am a certified sports nutritionist. I am a certified health coach, and I am a certified life coach. And that's actually the piece that I want to talk about right now, because what makes this presentation different is that so much of the information that we have about health and weight loss was done on men, college-aged men. And who I work with mostly is women who are in midlife, women who are just outside of childbearing years, so between like 45 and 60, and who are starting to notice changes in the way that their body works. The things that they used to do as younger women don't work anymore. And why this is important is because what makes this presentation different is that I'm not spouting the normal health and fitness information of eat less, move more, cut out all carbs, do all of that stuff. Now, today's presentation is going to be more of a slant towards more mindset or mind shift type of work. But I will be talking a little bit about, I will be talking for sure about exercise and eating and stuff like that from the context of the mental shifts that we need to make in order to be successful with our goals. So what happened though was what I would find with many of my clients is that they would be consistent. They would get consistent in their goals. They would get consistent in their eating habits and their exercise. And then something in their life would just come up, and whether it was a problem with their child, like their child got into trouble, or they needed to take extra special care with a parent, or their job got busy. And as I mentioned before, life would just get in the way and the rug would just get pulled out from under them. And as a personal trainer, as a nutritionist, I didn't feel like I was qualified to talk to my clients about their job or their relationships or money or things like that. But it was really frustrating to me because one of the reasons that we are able to take care of ourselves, one of the reasons that we are able to spend time exercising or eating right is because of how we take care of ourselves or how we manage our stress. And we're going to talk about this more in secret number one, but when we take care of ourselves, when we don't have the stress there, we take better care of ourselves. And all of the ways that we tell people to practice self-care, or practice stress management is like, go get a massage, go get a manicure. And it was always really frustrating to me until I added life coaching to my practice, because then I was able to coach people around these other areas of their life, which greatly impacted how they were able to take care of themselves. So oftentimes we don't eat extra because of the food, right? But all of the diets, what they do is they tell us just cut down on the food. Well, but the reason that we eat extra food is because of our stress, the way that we look at our problems. So many of us are stress eaters, or we eat out of anxiety, or we eat out of boredom. Those are all emotions. And so it's all emotional eating. If we can get our mind around why we're eating for the wrong reasons, which always has to do with this other stuff in our lives, it has nothing to do with the food or the exercise. The more we can focus on the other life stuff, the more that we can tackle then how we are eating, okay? What we are eating and why we're choosing to eat foods that aren't good for us, that foods that aren't going to make us towards our goal, right? The more that we can tackle that, the better we will be able to then ultimately get to our goal of whatever that is, whether it's a weight or whether it's doing certain things. All right. So that's just a little bit about who I am. And now the other thing is that know that my journey was not a straight path. And the pictures that you're seeing on your screen right now, that first picture is not the beginning picture. That was actually way into my journey already. I don't even have any pictures from when I was at my heaviest. I used to be a size 20. I don't even know how much I weighed at that point. And I have tried every single diet and exercise technique. In fact, I became a nutritionist and a personal trainer because I felt like I needed to know everything. The reason I became a personal trainer and a nutritionist is because I felt like if I knew everything, then I would be able to cure myself. And it wasn't until several years into being a trainer and a nutritionist and a wellness coach that I realized that knowing what to do has actually very little to do with what we do. Okay, so if you are with me right now, if you're like, yeah, I know all of the calorie counts on all of the food, I know what is in all of the food, I know what I'm supposed to be eating, but I'm not doing it, I'm 100% right there with you. So do you resonate with that? All right. Okay, I'm seeing that a bunch of you are saying yes. That's awesome. Okay, so even as a health and weight loss coach, I still struggled with my exercise and eating habits. So, if you are struggling right now, be aware that I was totally in that same place too. So my goal in this presentation today is to help you discover the easier way. Because when I went through this, there was no internet. There wasn't any life and weight loss coach for me to go to. And so I discovered everything that I discovered the long, hard way. Okay. And the long, hard way is investing in personal trainers, diet over diet and exercise programs that really don't work long term. And that's not to say that I don't think that personal trainers are great. I think personal trainers are fantastic. But if you're someone who doesn't want to spend the rest of your life going to a personal trainer, then you kind of need to figure out how to do this on your own. Crowdsourcing diet and exercise advice. Oh my God, this is great, isn't it? Like, oh, my brother's sister's, girlfriend's cousin did this diet and they got great results. You should do it too. What I found is that everyone is completely unique, and what works for one person may not work for the next. And so what we get to do is we get to figure out what works for me. And you probably already have some idea of that. We just need to uncover it. Okay. And then looking for the magic pill that will finally make the difference, doing all of the diets. I read all of the magazines. I did cleanses. I did high intensity interval training, keto, fasting, running. I did it all. And then when that didn't work, quitting and then giving up. Okay. So the internet is a terrific resource and there's a ton of information, but beware that sometimes that information can be completely overwhelming. And so just be aware that we need to figure out what works for you. Okay. And so after doing this for 17 years, I've discovered that there really is no magic pill, that you are not an exception to the rule. I used to think this when I was in my learning phase, that I needed to learn all about exercise and I needed to learn all about nutrition. I was like, oh, well, I just can't do it. I must be a special snowflake. My body must be different than everyone else's body. So therefore, diets and exercise don't work for me. That's untrue. You are not an exception. It's science. Okay. Also, knowing what to do has very little to do with your success. And then the last thing, which is so super important, which is how we think about our bodies, food, and exercise. So what I think about food, is there good food or is there bad food? Do I think that exercise is evil and painful? Do I think that I have to go exercise after I've overeaten? So how we think about our body, food, and exercise has way more of an impact on our weight and how we think about what we eat and what we do than anything else. Okay. So the faster and easier way that will actually work. I want you to imagine walking into a store and not thinking about your weight. Like when you wake up in the morning, not thinking about your weight. not having to plan or log everything that you eat and do. I love food logging. Don't get me wrong. I think it's actually a really useful tool, but I don't want to do it when I'm 70 years old. I'm sure you don't either. And so think about, how do we get to that point? Imagine being able to go out to eat for dinner and eating whatever it is that you want. I was just in my group coaching program, the Feel Good Sisterhood, and one of the women, actually two of the women, were like, oh my God, I went out to eat and I actually wanted the salad. They're like, I never thought that that would happen, but I actually am craving vegetables right now. When I go out to eat, I actually want to eat the healthier option. It's possible. It's totally possible. I'm proof, and I have clients that are proof as well. Imagine feeling confident because you've been so consistent and you feel amazing. Like, how awesome would that be? And then imagine looking in the mirror in the morning and actually liking what you see. So many women are just like, ugh, I don't want to see that, right? But it is possible to actually look in the mirror and be like, huh, I'm actually doing pretty good. Okay, to actually pay yourself a compliment. How awesome would that be? So here are the 3 secrets that you're going to learn today. Secret number 1 is how to tackle decision fatigue and what I call the F-its. You know the F-its. They're like when you get home from work and you're like, F it. I don't want to do what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just going to order in, or I'm just going to eat this leftover pizza, or whatever it is. The F-its are kind of like when we give up, right? Secret number 2 is what self-sabotage teaches us, and then how to stop doing it. Okay? Because we all want to learn that, don't we? Don't you want to learn that? Tell me, type yes in the I want to stop self-sabotage if you want to stop that. Okay, awesome. Got a couple of you. Perfect. And then how procrastination and being inconsistent can help us stop procrastinating and being inconsistent. What? I know. So, secret number 1. Okay, how I tackle decision fatigue and the F-its. So first of all, let's talk about decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is when, well, first of all, we make hundreds, thousands of decisions all day long. Like, should I have this or that? Should I wear this or that? Should I drink coffee now or later? Do I want another cup of coffee? Do I not? Do I want to take my lunch to work, or do I want to go out? Like, we make tons of decisions all day long. Do I want to answer the phone? Excuse me, or not? Do I want to punch my coworker in the face or not? Right? So we make all of these tiny little decisions throughout the day. And then what happens is at the end of the day, we're exhausted, right? We're just like, oh, I can't make another decision. I don't care. I don't want to decide anything more. I just want you to tell me what to do. I just want a personal chef to walk into my house and cook me a healthy dinner, and then I would be healthy, right? We all think that. If that was true, then Oprah wouldn't have a problem. But anyway, so that's what decision fatigue is. When we make tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of decisions, and then we're just like, oh, I can't make any more decisions. So be aware that when we start on a new behavior, when we create a New Year's resolution, when we are starting a new set of behaviors, we often think, oh, I'm just not going to do that anymore. So one that I struggled with for years is eating something sweet after dinner. For a long time, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just not going to eat something sweet after dinner. Seems simple enough, right? Willpower works until it doesn't. Okay. And so the question is why? Why does willpower work until it doesn't? So again, going back to decision fatigue, we make decisions all day long. And what happens then is the F-its are when we just don't care anymore. So I already talked about this, but how do I want to handle this conflict. How should I give that person a piece of my mind? How do I want to handle this? Do I bite my tongue or not? And then the F's are just kind of when we unleash and we do what that inner child, that little lower brain, emotional lizard brain wants to do. We've been keeping her tamped down all day, and now she just kind of wants to explode. Okay, so the F's could partly be because of decision fatigue, or one of the things is, have you ever had that where you've eaten 2 cookies and then you're like, oh, F it, I'm just going to eat the rest of them. So, these are some situations where we have that, I just don't care anymore. And so just be aware that when we set out to create new goals, we generally start in the wrong place. So what you're looking at right now is a framework called the NLP Logical Levels of Change. And oftentimes when we want to change our behavior, we start at the top. Now, how this pyramid, and I'll explain it a little bit, but how this pyramid works or how this progression works is that the things that are at the top are easy to change, but they really don't lead to lasting change. The things at the bottom lead to lasting change, but they're very difficult. Okay, so when we're talking about change, when we're talking about environmental change, what we're talking about is things that we do in our environment to help us to create better habits. So, for example, if you were a smoker, you wanted to stop smoking, you would break all of your ashtrays, you would throw away your cigarettes, you would throw away your lighters and clean up your environment so that you wouldn't be tempted by the cigarettes. Okay. Other examples of that might be a kitchen pantry makeover, or putting your clothes out at night so that when you wake up in the morning, you put your exercise clothes on and then you're more ready to exercise. Okay. So those are environmental changes. Or what many of us know is relying on habits. Stephen Covey from 7 Habits of Highly Successful People said that it took 21 days to create a habit. That is a bunch of BS. And it depends on how long you've been doing a habit before you will actually see change. So things that rely on habits would be things like taking your vitamins by putting them next to your toothbrush. So oftentimes when we're talking about habit change, what I'll help my clients with is I'll say, okay, so we want to peg a new habit to an existing one. So we want to peg our new habit of taking our multivitamin every day by doing something that we already do, whether that's brushing your teeth or drinking coffee or whatever. So you want to put your multivitamin then by whatever it is that you're doing, you're pegging so that you can remember to do that. So taking my multivitamin then every time I brush my teeth. Or another would be going to the gym immediately after exercising, or after going to work. So making sure that you drive by the gym. So what those do is they rely on a habit and cue. Okay. So when we're doing these things, we start in the wrong place. We start in the top. And I'm going to come back to the other ones in just a second. But the problem with this is that when stress happens, all of those things get pushed out the window. So the problem with creating environmental change or relying on habits is that those require upkeep. I need to make sure that the vitamins are always by my coffee maker. If I run out of vitamins, then I have to order more and put them there. If I want to make sure that my pantry is free of tempting food, I need to make sure that I don't buy tempting food at the grocery store and bring it home, or that no one in my house does. So these things need upkeep. Same thing with habits too, right? So what happens is, and I talked about this a little bit in the beginning, is when we get stressed out, what will typically happen is we'll have poor sleep, right? Because we're feeling stressed, we're not thinking about, or we're thinking about what's stressful. We're waking up in the middle of the night, we're having trouble sleeping. And when we have trouble sleeping, we don't prep our meals because we kind of oversleep, we don't really care about it. It's just not that important. And there is a physiological thing that happens that when we get poor sleep, our body doesn't process energy correctly. So therefore, the next square down is mid-afternoon energy cravings kick in. Have you ever found that like you're all sluggish and you're tired, and then you're like, oh, I know what would taste really good. I need some pretzels, or I need some chips, or I need some chocolate or a cookie. And because the brain knows that the easiest way to get energy is through carbohydrates, through sugar. And so therefore, we get that little energy boost and then we feel better. And then that habit becomes a thing. So when we take that mid-afternoon treat, we don't feel like we can take the time to exercise because we're sluggish and we're just tired. And then at the end of the day, we end up wired but tired, right? Have you ever had that where you're tired, you're fatigued, you've been thinking all day, you feel awful, but at the same time, you can't sleep. And that's because you haven't exercised. And so then after dinner, you have some wine or you have some treats or you have both. And then that just fuels poor sleep again, because as we get older, we are less tolerant of alcohol, and overeating just makes us feel bad as well. So we don't sleep well. And so it just becomes this endless cycle. And so that's why habits don't always work. And so the fix is, and I talk about this in one of my podcast episodes. I can't remember what the number is, but it's why affirmations don't work. And so what we really want to do is we want to start with I am statements. And what I mean by that is not I am beautiful, I am sexy, that type of affirmation, but really thinking about like, okay, you know what? I am someone who exercises on a regular basis, or I am working on creating better habits, and really start to think about the identity, because the identity piece, when we have a strong identity, and this actually happened to me, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but when we have a strong identity, then the beliefs and values that go along with that identity automatically gel. And we create skills and abilities that automatically mirror that new identity. And then we automatically create habits and behaviors, and our environment is already taken care of. So when we are able to manage our identity, our habits at the identity level, like really believing that I am someone who believes that she is a healthy eater. I am someone who believes that I love to exercise. I don't love to exercise, but I do love the way exercise feels. And so when we are able to really do those things from the identity level, from being at the bottom, and everything else will automatically take care of itself. And so I never saw myself as an athlete. I did a bodybuilding competition. You saw that picture earlier. And I was in derby. So I was a roller derby girl, and I never saw myself as an athlete. In fact, and this was even when I was a personal trainer. So even when I was a personal trainer, I was really inconsistent with my exercising. And it was so interesting to me, because it wasn't until I ran my only half marathon, I crossed that finish line, I got the medal. And in that moment, I remember I just started crying, and I don't even know why I started crying, but it was just this flood of emotions of, I am now an athlete. And what's so interesting about that story is that once I created that identity of being an athlete, then I never struggled with exercising ever again. It was just something that I did. Something that many of you probably recognize is there's another time that many women, not me, but many women experience, which is the shift that we go from not being a mother to being a mother. And when we make that shift, our whole life changes. And so that's another one of those identity shifts that we have. And so identity shifts can happen in an instant, but more often than not, you've probably heard the phrase of acting as if. Sometimes we have to act as if we are something in order to then become it. Okay, I know that with jobs, I would start a new job and be like, oh my God, I feel like a total imposter. They're going to figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about. But when we do it and we act as if we do know what we're doing, eventually we'll grow into it. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is pretending that you are the thing in order to actually be the thing. Okay. So that's secret number one, is when we have decision fatigue and the F-its, what we need to do is really think about who I am, because when we are an exerciser, when we are a healthy eater, we're not going to do the easy thing. We're going to do the thing that we're used to. We're going to do the thing that we love, because we're not going to be like, fuck it, right? Excuse me. Sorry, didn't mean to swear. Okay, so secret number two, what self-sabotage teaches us and how to stop doing it. Okay, so first of all, what is self-sabotage? We all know what self-sabotage is, right? It's when we have this goal, right? So I'm on a diet and I'm making progress towards the goal, and then something happens and we do something that's out of alignment with what we say that we want, right? That's self-sabotage. When we have this goal that's really super important to us, and then it seems like things get in the way, right? That, well, someone brought home cookies. That's self-sabotage, right? Or that all of a sudden we've won a trip for a weekend, and we're like, gosh, if I could only start making some momentum towards my goal, then I would feel so much better. And so be aware that no one likes to screw up, right? When we set our goals in place, we feel like we should be able to do this. We feel like we should be able to exercise 3 times a week or eat vegetables daily. We feel like we should be able to get in bed by 11 o'clock. We feel like we should, as adults, have our shiz together, right? But be aware that if you haven't been doing exercise at all, that maybe exercising 3 times a week is actually a little bit too much, okay? So what screw ups teach us is maybe we've bitten off more than we can chew. Now, I know that we don't like going backwards, but sometimes when we set a goal, like to exercise 3 times a week for 20 minutes a piece, and we can't make that happen that first week, maybe we ratchet it down a little bit. Maybe we take a little bit off the top and say, okay, well, I didn't do that. What can I commit to? What's so freaking super easy that I can actually do it? Is it putting on my sneakers and walking to the end of the block 3 times a week? Is it walking for 5 minutes? You know, what is it? What is it that I can absolutely 100% commit to? And why this is important is because we want to start building self-trust, okay? So that's the first one. We've bitten off more than we can chew, getting a little bit into teaching mode. It could also be teaching us that it's not in alignment with our goals. So in other words, like oftentimes we don't want to, we want to lose weight, but sometimes other people in our life want us to lose weight. And if we don't really want it ourselves, then we're not going to be successful, and it's just going to make us feel worse. So number 3 is we don't identify with this new habit. Like, if you don't want to exercise, you don't have to exercise, okay? Or if someone told you like, oh, the vegetarian diet, well, yeah, okay, but I really like eating meat. And so we don't identify with this new habit. And, or number 4 is we have a story playing in our heads, okay? Like I talked about at the very beginning, like I'm just big boned, right? Or my family just has a difficult time losing weight, or I can't do it because I'm over 50 years old. I mean, it's impossible to lose weight at 50, right? All right, so what's the fix? The fix is getting curious. And I put my picture of my dog Sadie here because she is so freaking curious. And so what I mean by that is oftentimes when we've screwed up, right, we judge ourselves. We're like, oh, gosh, darn it, Elizabeth, you screwed up again. And instead, what I want to suggest is that you create what's called non-judgmental curiosity. I know you're like, what? What the hell is that, Elizabeth? Non-judgmental curiosity is the ability to look at a situation without judgment and ask ourselves, okay, really, what got in the way here? Like, why didn't I do what I said I was going to do? Like, what exactly happened? Because when we can look at a situation from a point of view of curiosity instead of judgment, what judgment does is it blocks any learning. And if we really want to be successful in our goals, what we need to do is we need to learn what it is that we are doing. We need to learn how to do better. And how we learn how to do better is through getting curious about what happened, what went well, what didn't go well. And then one of the questions I asked all of my clients whenever they come to me and they're like, oh, that was just such a disaster. I always ask them, okay, so if you had to do it all over again, I love this question. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently? Okay, it's a simple question. And what it does is it really takes away all of the judgment about the self-sabotage. Oh, I shouldn't have eaten ice cream. Well, is that really true? Because when the version of you who's successful, does she eat ice cream? Probably, right? Yes, some of you are saying yes. So the version of you who says, I shouldn't have eaten ice cream, what's going to happen? You can't eat ice cream until you get to your goal weight. And then someday you're going to be like, oh, now I can manage eating ice cream. How is that going to happen? You need to be eating ice cream on the way to your goal in order to learn how to manage that. Okay. Same thing goes for overeating. If you've been overeating for the past 20 years, 40 years, then you need to learn how to not overeat anymore. And you know what's going to happen? You're occasionally going to make a mistake. It's totally okay. So when we screw up, when we have these self-sabotaging moments, the fix to them is getting curious and ask ourselves, why did this happen? What are my beliefs around the ice cream? Do I think ice cream is bad? Do I think that ice cream is off limits? Because when something's off limits, it immediately becomes desirable. And then asking ourselves, is that really true? Like asking ourselves, should I be perfect until we get to our goal weight? And if I do think that I'm supposed to be perfect, do I expect that from other people? We always expect different for ourselves, right? And then the last question is, are those beliefs, or are there more empowering beliefs that will aid me in reaching my goal? Is there something else that I can think that's better than what I'm currently thinking? So I want you to meet Shannon. And this is what Shannon had to say about working with me and my process, that this whole experience has been so eye-opening. I never realized how much my parents and family's attitudes towards their health influenced me in my decisions. It's so true. Like when we grow up and we have to be part of the clean plate club, that was totally Shannon's thing. Like, oh, I have to eat everything on my plate, right? And so through the successes that she had of being able to leave a little bit on her plate, it was just huge. And being able to throw food away, that's something that so many of us struggle with. It's something that I struggled with too. Through looking at my repeated behaviors, my words and my excuses, I was able to identify how my stories and what I learned as a kid were holding me back. So true for many of us. I'm not where I want to be yet, but with these techniques, I'm confident that I'll be able to get there. And what I want to say about that, what I'm not where I want to be yet, none of us are. Like seriously, I'm not where I want to be yet. What I've been talking about a lot with my clients recently, and I was talking about it with Shannon here, is that when we have a goal, so today you have a goal of what perfect eating or what perfect exercise or what the perfect set of habits would look like when you are at goal. I want you to be aware that that goalpost is going to move. Where I am today, 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, that's perfect eating. That's perfect exercise. But today, there's always room for improvement. Your brain is always going to come up with the yeah buts, right? So be aware that when we have a goal, that goalpost is not fixed. It's actually going to move as we go along. Okay, so I'm not where I want to be yet. Truer words could not have been spoken. All right. So secret number 3, okay, how procrastination and being inconsistent can help us to stop procrastinating and being inconsistent, okay? So procrastination and avoiding are actually forms of what we call resistance. And in my practice with my clients, I use something called the think, feel, act cycle or the model. And what that means is that whatever we do, right, all of the actions that we take will create our results. And the reason that we do or don't do anything has to do with how we feel, our emotional state. So when we're motivated, we do the things that the diet tells us to do, right? And then we get the result on the diet. But when we feel demotivated, when we feel defeated, when we feel frustrated, then we don't do the things that are on the plan. And so then we don't get the results. Okay. So procrastination and avoiding are emotion or our actions that are done from a place of resistance. We feel resistant. And some of the things that we resist are not exercising, not prepping our food, forgetting to do something, forgetting to do our taxes, avoiding conflict, feeling overwhelmed, okay? So we procrastinate because we want to avoid pain. So there's this tool called the Motivational Triad, and the Motivational Triad is the key to unlocking everything that's confusing to us about why we do stuff. The Motivational Triad is that we seek pleasure, we avoid pain, and we do it as efficiently as possible. So when we don't exercise, of course we don't exercise because sitting on the couch, eating Cheetos and watching reruns of Friends is way more comfortable than going out and doing a walk, right? Especially if this is new to us, because we don't have the experience of knowing that on the other side of exercise, it's actually going to make us feel better. And so when we do things that are really confusing to us, whether it's self-sabotage or whether it's procrastination, doesn't really matter. We're always doing things that we are seeking pleasure, we're avoiding pain, and we're doing it as quickly as possible. Okay, so even though, and this is so funny because we know that the reason that we exercise is because it's going to make us feel better later. The reason that we prep our food is to set ourselves up for success, right? But we know that we're going to be in pain later. And in fact, I have another podcast called Discomfort Now or Discomfort Later that you should check out. And in that podcast, I talk a lot about, well, it's all about how we can either have discomfort now or we can have discomfort later. So within any decision, we either have discomfort now or pleasure now. Okay, so we're sitting on the couch, we're supposed to go exercise. The discomfort is getting up off of the couch and going to exercise. The pleasure is staying put and eating Cheetos, right? Or we can get up and we can do the thing. And after we've made our decision, we'll either have the discomfort, the pleasure of sitting on the couch, the discomfort of being out of shape or not fitting into our pants or overeating and feeling bad, right? Or on the other side of the discomfort, which is getting up and actually doing the thing, we'll feel the pleasure of endorphins or feeling strong or just getting the cobwebs and stress release off of our heads, right? And so for every decision that we make, there's going to be discomfort and pleasure. We have to decide which one of those we want to do. Most often, our lower brain, the emotional brain, will always try to go for the pleasure now over the pleasure later. Okay, so just some information. I used to be a huge procrastinator. And it wasn't until I was listening to a book on tape called The Neuroscience of Change by Kelly McGonigal. And what she talked about was that procrastination is something that we all do, and we do it because we're trying to avoid a feeling. And I remember at that moment when I heard that, I was like, oh, really? Because I really wanted to get out of procrastination. And it was shocking to me because it was the beginning of my personal training career, and people would call me to set up appointments to get to want to do personal training. And I wouldn't call them back. And I was like, Elizabeth, why are you doing this? And it was because I didn't want them to reject me. So I was rejecting myself first. I didn't want them to think that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so therefore I didn't call them back. And it was just confusing. And so what I realized that I was procrastinating calling my prospects back because I was fearing that they would, well, first of all, I was feeling the anxiety of calling them back, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to present myself, but then fearing the rejection. And so anyway, that right there was actually the beginning of my foray into personal development. Once I started uncovering my feelings, I then was like, oh, I get all of this stuff now. Okay. So anyway, what is the solution? The solution is to notice that you're resisting. Like we all know when we're procrastinating, right? And so really getting in tune with what am I feeling and why am I procrastinating? Most often I find that for myself that I resist when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling confused or blocked. So like, let's say that I decide to do a project at work and I feel really clear on it. And then I go to like take steps and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing now. So that's what I mean by confusion. Like when we're setting up taxes, right? If you've never done it before, you're like, I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's resistance for confusion. And then the third one is fear or anxiety. So just really checking in with myself and noticing, why am I avoiding doing this? And then what steps can I take in order to feel better? Okay, so I want to ask you, how are we doing right now? How can you see how each of these different things can lead you to success? So again, secret number one was how I tackled decision fatigue and the efforts. And the answer to that is really being able to start with your identity and really work on changing your identity versus changing what's in your environment and changing your habits. I mean, don't get me wrong, changing your environment and changing your habits are really super important, but when we can do things from the identity level, that's really when we're going to take off. secret number 2 was what self-sabotage teaches us and how to stop. So again, really getting curious with what it is that we're doing and asking like non-judgmental curiosity. Like, don't judge, because when we judge, we can't learn from the experience, but really asking myself, like, if I were to do it over again, what would I do differently? Okay, so if you ate ice cream and you feel like you overate ice cream, what would you do differently? Maybe you'd buy a smaller container at the grocery store, or maybe instead of eating out of the container, you would eat out of a bowl. Okay. And then number 3 is how procrastination and being inconsistent can help us stop doing those things. So the first thing is really noticing our resistance and noticing what we're feeling that creates that resistance. Okay. So can you see how these would really help you? Okay, good. Some of you are saying yes, that's awesome. Perfect. All right. So that's all I have for you today. Now, what's next is this week on Zoom, I have 2 more podcasts, or I'm sorry, I have 2 more webinars. So I'm going to be releasing a webinar on today's Monday. I'm going to be releasing a webinar on Wednesday and on Friday. The one on Wednesday is all about whittle your middle, how to lose weight and feel great. This is geared towards women who are in midlife who want to lose belly fat. And then the last one on Friday is going to be master your hormones for better health. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about hormonal health. And in that webinar, I'm also going to give solutions. Okay. So then I have 2 more things that I want to invite you to. One is I have 2 really great resources. One on January 3rd at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central, or 8 a.m. Pacific. I'm doing another live webinar, and that's going to be called How to Conquer Your 2022 Goals. And that's just going to take all of the information that I'm presenting this week and stepping it up a notch. And then also, if you just don't know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, I have a fantastic resource for you. It's called 8 Basic Habits That Healthy People Do Guide and Checklist. Go to elizabethsherman.com/habits let me go to elizabethsherman.com/habits and check that out, and that'll be sent to you. There's a really amazing email sequence that goes along with that that'll keep you on track for a few weeks after that. But if you want to register for my webinar on Monday, go to elizabethsherman.com/NYR. All right. So that's all I have for you today. Have an amazing week, everyone. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. All right.